Okay, so we've got our ability to go from one game into the next, but it's obviously going to be somewhat not very exciting for your players if they're just constantly playing the same map over and over and over again. So the next thing we're going to do is set it up so that our players are able to have multiple different maps to load in between. And obviously to do that, we're going to need to set up another map to use, but we don't want to just directly go, okay, we'll just create another level, call it map 2 and move on from there. We are going to do that, but there's a couple of things we want to do before we do that. And that is we need to keep some of these elements here as prefabs that we can use in our different scenes. And the reason we'll make them prefabs is because if we make a change to them in one scene, we want it to work in all the other scenes. Like for example, in a little bit ahead of us, we're going to add the ability not just for our matches to end after a certain amount of kills, but for them to end after a certain amount of time. And we're going to want to have a way to display the time on our canvas. So when we add that in, we want to make sure that our canvas on both of these maps will be updated correctly. So first thing I'm going to do is rename this to be UI canvas. And then I'm going to go to my prefabs folder and I'm going to right click and create a new folder called level bits. And in here, I'm going to put in the basic level components that I want to have across my scenes. So I want to have my UI canvas working the same. I want to have a spawn manager working the same. And then I want the player spawner and I want the match manager. And I want all of these to always have their correct information stored within them. So this way, when we make a change to the match manager, maybe if we say, oh, we actually want our matches to all wait for 3 seconds. What we would do is then go to overrides, apply that, and now every other level would have that same value. I am going to leave this at 5 though, because I think 5 is a good amount to use. Okay, so with that in mind, that's that one basic setup. Let's save this, and then I've saved that in my normal map 1. Now when I go to File, Save As, and then my scenes folder, I'm going to save this as map 2. And now that I have an extra scene that I want to load to, I'm going to make sure I go to my build settings and I want to add that in here. So I could find it in the scenes folder and drag it into here, or I can just click add open scenes and it'll pop that in there for me. So that means I will be able to load to this map a bit later. Now we do want to make this level look slightly different for our players. Obviously, when you go and build a whole big game, you'll want your levels to look completely different. You'll want to have completely different designs and all that kind of stuff. But this isn't a course about level design. This is about creating an online game. So we're just going to keep it nice and simple. And all I'm going to do is take my low poly city here and change the x-axis value to minus 0.5. And all that does is just flip the map over. So now we have a slightly differently aligned map. That also means that our spawn points are slightly off now. So on our spawn manager, I'm going to take the X scale to be -1 as well. And now all our spawn points are in the correct position relative to where they were previously. One other thing that you can do if you want to, it's completely up to you, is go to my materials folder and I'm going to create, let's create a new folder here that we'll just call colors. And let's create a couple of very simple materials. Create material. We'll create a blue one first. We'll make this a nice color of blue. I'm going to make it a bit smoother than that. And if you want to, you could go ahead and start coloring some of these buildings different colors just to make them look a bit different. Let's get this UI canvas hidden so we can't accidentally click on it. So now I can drop this in. Let's make a ship blue. Let's make some other colors too. We'll get a red. And all you have to do is drag it onto different components of these models and it will change them to those colors. We get a yellow. We'll get a green as well, I suppose. And we're just going to drop these into a few different places just to make the map look a little bit different. Even though it is functionally the exact same as it was before, we can try these things out and just see something that maybe makes the map stand out a little bit differently to what we had before. Okay, so we've got a few different colors here. Let's throw a green building in here. You can obviously make adjustments to all of these elements if you want. I'm going to make this building have yellow and green. It's not going to be the most exciting design in the world or anything, but at least it'll make them stand out a little bit more and a little bit differently, and add a little bit of color into our game here in general. Let's make this building have little white bands and be predominantly, I don't know, green, let's say. There we go. So now we've got a little bit of color. This map just looks a little bit different to what we had before. And of course, at the moment, we can't just run in and play it because there's nothing set up to make this work. So we're going to add the system to move between maps in the next video.